The Amazing Digital Circus episode 9 didn't really land for me. After finishing the series and looking back on it as a whole, I realized that I've been slowly disconnecting from the show since around episode 7. I think it's partially because the show accidentally theory-baited its audience. If you don't know, theory-bait is when a story presents details that seem important or heavily foreshadowed or mysterious, encouraging people to theorize about them, only for those details to never receive meaningful payoff. Sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's just a side effect of how a story is structured. And no, I don't think Gooseworks intentionally sat down and said, let's trick these people into making theories. I actually think that she told the story that she wanted to. However, I do think the show repeatedly taught viewers that certain mysteries mattered, only for many of those mysteries to become irrelevant before receiving the follow-up that they deserved. And I think that's why so many fans walked away with completely different expectations of what the show actually wanted to be. Now, let me give you some examples before we get into my actual opinion. Think back to the pilot. What were people talking about? Not characters, not emotional growth, not relationship dynamics. People were talking about who is Kane? What is the void? What is the circus? Is there actually an exit? Why are they trapped? Why can't they remember their names? Do they have digital hallucinations? How did everybody get there? What causes abstraction? The pilot practically trains the audience to become detectives. Every frame feels loaded with clues and foreshadowing. The slow pan to the CNA logo, the abstracted Kaufmo following only red stuff, the pixie dust around the exit door, everything seems intentional. When Kane says that Pomni will get spoiled in the void, that's not a line that most viewers interpret as a throwaway joke. It sounds like a setup, it sounds like something we'll eventually understand. And the same thing happened with the exit door. The fandom spent months analyzing every frame of that sequence. People debated whether it was real or not, whether Kane was lying, whether Pomni was actually escaping. The mystery itself was the experience. The problem is that the show eventually stopped being primarily about these mysteries and dropped some of them altogether. And as the series went on, the show became less interested in the world and more interested in the people living inside it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, some viewers prefer it that way. I do too. I love interpersonal drama. But these are two very different types of stories. Imagine two audiences. Audience A came from lore and mysteries and world building and hidden clues, and audience B came for character psychology and relationships and emotional arcs. And the pilot was heavily marketed towards audience A, meanwhile the later episodes increasingly serve audience B. That's where the disconnect comes from, in my opinion. The show didn't stop asking any questions, it just stopped treating those questions as the most important part of the show. And this is where my personal frustration comes from. Not because every mystery needs an answer. Actually, some mysteries are just better off left unexplored. Like the CNA, for example. We don't need to know more than we do. But I'm confused because the show keeps presenting things as if they're important, but then leaves them up for interpretation. Take Kinger, for example. He's one of the oldest residents of the circus. He's connected to the first abstraction, his wife died. He clearly understands things that other characters just don't. His memory behaves differently from everyone else's. Sometimes he remembers things in the dark, sometimes he remembers things in bright light, and most of the time he doesn't remember anything. The fandom spent years trying to understand how his memory actually worked and what it meant. And by the end we still don't know. And then there's Kane. How much control does he actually have over the players? Can he alter their memories? Can he manipulate their thoughts? Did he put those flashbacks in Jax's head? And the show practically begs us to speculate. And then it never really addressed it. We're left guessing. And the same thing happened with Scratch's abstraction. How much responsibility does Kane actually bear? What did he do to him and why? Did he do it to the others too? Did he manipulate Kinger's mind? Again, the show raises these questions but doesn't seem particularly interested in answering them. And the same thing applies to, for example, the blue AI. We see that Kane was the corrupted one, but in episode 9 we see the blue AI, Bubble, being the corrupted one. So which one is corrupted? Or the internet connection. Kane did not have any contact with the outside world for decades, and now he has 5 minutes to scroll on Instagram? How did this happen? Or the episode 5 intermission sequence. I saw so many videos made on that scene and how they analyze every detail with the possibility that it's foreshadowing for the finale, and yet I didn't really connect any dots by the end. It was just an intermission, nothing really hidden in there. Many of these details generated months of discussion, but when the finale arrived, most of them received really brief explanations, none at all, or even made us have even more questions. And you cannot tell me that all of these questions are unimportant and deserve to stay ambiguous. I mean, if that's what you think, I don't blame you. That's your personal opinion. But I personally think that we deserved more closure than we got. And the lore was pushed into the background so much that some things just started not making sense at some point. And my issue isn't every mystery should be solved, but rather why does the show raise so many questions only for it to never touch them ever again? Moments like this don't completely break the story for me, but they do weaken the immersion and leave me confused for half the time. Another place where the theory bait feeling comes from is how the mysteries are presented. For example, when Kinger says scratch in episode 8, the delivery makes it sound like he's saying a cuss word, like shoot, the first abstraction, and for a moment viewers didn't think that that's the actual name of the first person that abstracted. Or the Jack's flashback scene from the same episode, when he has the flashbacks of his old life and tells Kane, "You got in my head." Did Kane actually get in his head and Jax realized it? Or was it just a figure of speech because Kane lied to them the whole episode? The framing almost makes it seem designed to create debate, not because the answer actually matters, but because the speculation itself creates engagement. It just feels deliberately misleading. Another example of this is in the pilot when Kane sees the chaos that Kaufmo created and he says, "Oh yeah, my doing." Almost makes it seem like he played a role in abstracting Kaufmo, but the line is so vague that the fandom just started speculating. But we could also just headcanon that he thinks the glowings are to blame. Again, I don't think this is malicious or it's something bad to have this type of dialogue, but I do think that the show occasionally uses ambiguous lines like this as a source of excitement, without always following through on the implications. We just have to headcanon everything, and it doesn't work for me personally. Maybe it works for you and that's amazing, but I personally feel like the show treats me like a kid that has to be baited into engaging with it, and that just kind of pisses me off, not gonna lie. So is the Amazing Digital Circus theory bait? Kinda. I mean, not because the show has mysteries or because every unanswered question is a flaw, but I think the real issue is that the Amazing Digital Circus sets up expectations for a mystery-heavy narrative and then gradually transforms into a character-focused one. If there had been more episodes, maybe the two sides would have felt more balanced. Maybe some of the lore would have had room to breathe, and maybe more questions would have received proper attention. But with only 9 episodes, a lot of the mystery side of the show feels compressed, rushed, or abandoned altogether. And that's why, looking back, I don't think that the show is theory bait, but I think it accidentally feels like theory bait, because it taught me to look for clues, then eventually asked me to stop looking and just focus on Jax.